Alright, what's going on, everybody? This is my 2005 Suzuki Eiger 400 4x4. It is a 5-speed foot shift, and one thing that's interesting about these Suzukis is even though they're a foot shift, they have high and low gear, just like if it was a CVT transmission, which is real nice. It kind of turns it into 10-speed, if you will. Another thing that's really nice about these, they're older, but they have selectable two-wheel drive. So if you buy a four-wheel drive model, you can change between two-wheel drive and four-wheel drive, which in my opinion is huge. I've had a bunch of four-wheelers. The older Hondas are all-time four-wheel drive. That's not something that you want. It's real hard to steer, and they don't handle very well at all. If you're looking for an older four-wheeler in general, I would say when I was looking at this one, there was a few things that I needed to have. The first one, I really wanted a foot shift because I don't really do the whole belt situation. I know that pretty much all the four-wheelers now have belts. They're all CVT transmissions, but if I was getting something older, I wanted to get a foot shift. The second thing, selectable four-wheel drive. You really want selectable four-wheel drive. You know, it's just something that I think, you know, at least me buying a four-wheeler, that's what I wanted. The third thing is disc brakes. So this has front disc brakes, and rear it has a drum. The rear didn't really matter much to me, but the front is disc. You really want disc brakes. I promise you, it's worth finding one that has disc brakes. I can't guarantee you, but I can assume with high likelihood that if you have drum brakes in the front, they will not work. And even if they do work, once you hit the mud and you go in water and stuff, they ain't gonna work very well, and you're gonna constantly have problems with them. I promise you. I've had a few four-wheelers. Most of them have drum brakes. They never worked. I went a long time without brakes in general. I've had a lot. I've had anything from 1990 to 2007. A pretty big history. Another thing I wanted, straight axle in the rear. It's just a lot stronger than an independent rear suspension, especially if you're getting into an older machine. I would recommend getting a solid rear axle because back then independent suspension really wasn't that great anyway, so it's worth having the strength over the comfort, in my opinion. Another thing about the Eiger in general, the seat's very comfortable. This has an aftermarket seat cover, but the regular seat cover was just fine as well. One thing that I like a lot about this particular model and the Suzukis in general that I've ridden is they get very good fuel economy. I'll ride for 3 or 4 hours and through the mud, through the water, through, you know, rough conditions, low, high gear, and it won't even go through a quarter tank of gas. I'm so serious. I don't know why. I've never had a four-wheeler this fuel efficient, but that's just the way it is. I'm not really sure, but yeah. Another thing that I like about the Suzuki, the Eiger, and just most Suzuki four-wheelers in general, they're engineered very well. So I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see it, but this has a simple spin-on oil filter. That's pretty sweet if you ask me. If you don't clean your four-wheeler ever like mine, you just zip the oil filter right out, you know, clean that little area, zip the oil filter off and just change the oil. Boom, you're good to go. That's real nice in my opinion. Good headlights. The headlights are real decent, obviously when they're not covered in mud. The bumpers, newer four-wheelers and stuff, they have the chintziest plastic bumpers I've ever seen. This has a real metal bumper in the front, which is really nice. It protects the headlights decently, not great. They don't wrap around the headlights, but it's better than what most new four-wheelers have. This has Carlisle AT tires. They're 25-inch all the way around. Pretty good tires. I keep them 3 psi in the front, 4 psi in the rear. That's just what always has worked for me. I like more grip in the front and you know, a little bit more slidey in the rear. You know, 1 psi is not going to make much of a difference in the diameter when you're talking about a four-wheel drive binding of the drivetrain. I don't think that's going to be that big of a deal. This one has a backup recoil or a backup pull starter, which is nice. Another thing about Suzuki's engineering in general, I don't know why all four-wheelers don't have this, but they have these little things called bellows. They're very expensive to replace, but it's basically just a breather, but you know, without all the crap of the vent lines going all over the place, having to worry about those. That's pretty nice in my opinion, because you don't have to worry about rerouting vent lines, especially if you want to snorkel it. You don't really have to worry about that. I mean, you can, it's probably not a bad idea, but I think for, you know, 99% of people, that's going to be just fine. Rack capacity is good. I've had multiple people on it and it seems to do just fine. The rear storage is not that good, but you know, whatever. You know, it's an older four-wheeler. It's you know, here's my hand. I can touch about right there, if that gives you a decent idea. It's real quiet, which I like personally. I don't like obnoxious aftermarket exhaust because the carburetors, I can never get them tuned right when I do aftermarket, and they're loud, and usually I ride in places where I'm not supposed to, so I don't really like to be loud and obnoxious. What else? The fuel tank is pretty big. I think it's 4 gallons is the spec on it, which is pretty big. It'll last you a good long while. What else? If you can, you know, they're optional. You can get the Eiger with a CVT transmission. I had one buddy that had them. It was newer. I think it was 08 or 09. I mean, it worked fine. You know, but he was on factory tires. If you're gonna go to anything more aggressive like a mud tire, or especially if you're gonna go bigger than factory, I would not recommend getting a CVT. Get the foot shift. But that honestly goes with anything, because even if, you know, you had a newer machine and you wanted to go to bigger, more aggressive mud tires, you're going to need to clutch it accordingly anyway. So in my opinion, just save yourself the hassle and just go with the foot shift. What else? I don't have anything aftermarket on this thing. It's all factory. Even the vacuum operated carb is still working. I have no idea how. These Suzukis, they have vacuum operated fuel petcocks. They're really annoying. I had an Ozark that had one and it didn't work, and I literally searched up and down, went crazy because the thing would not run. I didn't know why. Sure enough, it was that vacuum operated petcock was bad. So that's something to keep in mind for the Suzukis, or the older ones that aren't fuel injected. The rear brakes are good. You know, the drum brake works in the back. It has a parking brake, which is pretty nice, especially if you're going to tow it, you know, in the bed of a truck and you don't necessarily have a big enough bed like I do to close the rear tailgate. I have a Toyota Tacoma, therefore this bed is too small to be able to close the tailgate. So I just put the parking brake on, put it in low gear, lock it in four-wheel drive in gear, and it won't, and you know, put the parking brake on, it won't move. And then I just ratchet strap it from the rear bumper to the front, you know, toe or front, whatever you want to call them, points in the bed. What else? I think that's about it. Overall, you know, I paid $2,200 for this. I think they're good deals. You know, they're pretty unpopular. You don't see very many of them out there, which is why I wanted to get this on video. You know, get it, you know, on YouTube, because they're kind of rare, especially with the foot shift. You know, you don't, in four-wheel drive, you don't really see that many of them. But I think it's a good machine. I've had mine for a while, and I ride the crap out of it, and it's held up just fine. It hasn't broke. I need to put brake pads on it, but other than that, that's just normal maintenance stuff. I recommend getting one. I wouldn't pay much for them, but you know, I think it's a good machine. I would definitely, you know, recommend people get them. Obviously, just do your due diligence and look it over, make sure it's not leaking or burning any oil or anything like that. I'm currently might be wanting to sell this just because I'm thinking about getting a brute force 750. It makes good power, you know, with the 400. It makes good power, you know, bottom end, mid range, not a lot of top end power. But you know, bottom and mid range is good for, you know, 90% of trail riding, especially in the mud. Or if you want to move to bigger tires, plus you have low gear. But me personally, you know, I'm a young man, I'd like a little bit more power. I had a Yamaha Grizzly 660 and I loved that machine, and I sold it and I regret it. So I bought this because I was, you know, didn't have much money, and now, you know, I'm wanting to go a little bit bigger. So I'd like to get a brute force 750 or a Grizzly 700, but the brute forces are a lot cheaper, so probably gonna go down that route. But yeah, let me know if you all have any questions about it or what have you. You know, I can try to help as best I can. But if you like the videos, just leave it a like and consider subscribing. I have a lot of stuff about trucks and four-wheelers, cars, stuff like that. And you know, what means a lot to me is if you just leave a comment and let me know what you liked about the video and what you didn't. That helps me a lot, because I'm trying to, you know, during this quarantine for the coronavirus, I'm trying to be productive, so I decided to go for the YouTube channel. But alright guys, y'all have a good one, okay? Bye.